The sound of the impact cracked through the diner like a dropped plate, sharp and unforgiving, and for a breathless second the entire room froze as if time itself had flinched. A young waitress lay pressed against a sticky tabletop, her hands splayed and shaking, the taste of fear thick in the air, while the wealthy young man looming over her lifted his arm again, drunk on power and the certainty that money had always shielded him. It was the kind of moment people later said they would never forget, the kind that burns itself into memory and forces a choice between looking away and becoming someone braver than you were a second ago. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in the idea that ordinary places can become stages for extraordinary change, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this only matter when we choose to carry them forward together. The diner had started the day like any other, sunlight pouring through the wide windows and turning the chrome edges of tables into thin lines of fire. The waitress, barely out of her teens, had tied her hair back with care that morning and smoothed the creases from her uniform as if neatness could protect her from the storms of the world. She worked double shifts to help her mother keep the lights on, and she had learned early how to swallow small humiliations with a smile, how to apologize even when she had done nothing wrong. When the wealthy young man arrived with his polished shoes and loud laugh, he filled the booth with entitlement, snapping his fingers and demanding attention as if the room existed solely to serve him. Each small mistake he imagined became a reason to belittle her, his words sharp and public, and the other customers lowered their eyes, pretending to study menus they already knew by heart. The moment things turned ugly came without warning, like a sudden storm on a clear afternoon. A spilled drink, a plate he claimed was cold, a glare that hardened into something cruel. He rose from his seat, towering over her, and in his anger he shoved her forward, her head striking the table with a dull, terrifying sound that sucked the breath from the room. The waitress felt the world tilt, felt tears blur the bright diner into a smear of colors, and in that instant she believed what fear had been whispering to her for years, that she was alone, that no one would step in, that power always won. The manager hesitated behind the counter, calculating risks and losses, and the patron sat frozen, trapped between outrage and cowardice. What none of them noticed at first was the door opening at the back, the bell giving a soft, almost polite chime that felt absurdly gentle against the violence unfolding inside. A man in simple clothes stepped in, his posture relaxed but alert, eyes scanning the room with the practiced calm of someone who had seen worse than this and survived it. He carried himself without arrogance, yet there was something unmistakable about him, a gravity that settled the air around him. He was a Navy SEAL on leave, though no one in the diner knew that yet, and the German shepherd at his side, trained and steady, paused just long enough to read the room before sitting quietly, as if waiting for a signal that only it could hear. The SEAL took in the scene with a clarity sharpened by years of training, noting the waitress's trembling hands, the man's raised arm, the paralysis of the onlookers. He moved forward not with a shout or a rush, but with deliberate steps that cut through the chaos like a blade through water. The wealthy young man turned, irritated by the interruption, and in that moment something shifted. It wasn't fear that crossed his face, not at first, but confusion, as if the script he had always relied on had suddenly changed. The SEAL's presence was quiet yet undeniable, a reminder that real strength did not need to announce itself. The waitress felt a shadow fall across the table, felt a steadiness enter the space that had been filled with terror seconds before. She dared to lift her eyes, meeting the calm gaze of a stranger who looked at her not as a problem or an inconvenience, but as a person worth protecting. The room seemed to exhale, the frozen moment thawing as murmurs rippled through the booths. The wealthy young man's bluster faltered, his authority suddenly questioned, and he stepped back, muttering, his power leaking away under the weight of collective attention. In the aftermath, the waitress was helped to her feet, her legs weak but holding. The SEAL stayed close, a silent reassurance, while the manager finally found his voice and did what he should have done from the start. The young man was escorted out, his wealth meaningless in the face of consequences he could not buy his way out of this time. Outside, sirens wailed faintly in the distance, a promise that the world had rules after all, that lines once crossed could not simply be erased. As the adrenaline faded, the diner returned to its rhythms, though something fundamental had changed. The waitress sat with a cup of water, hands wrapped around it as if anchoring herself to the present. She felt embarrassed by her tears, by the attention, but beneath it all was a fragile spark of something new. She had been seen. She had been defended. The SEAL spoke little, offering comfort through presence rather than words, and when he finally left, the bell over the door chimed again, sounding almost hopeful this time. In the days that followed, the story spread, carried by customers and shared online, a reminder that courage could walk into any room unannounced. The waitress returned to work, her bruises fading but her posture subtly changed, as if she stood a little taller now. She still faced difficult customers, still felt the weight of long hours and low pay, but she also felt a growing resolve, a belief that she deserved dignity, that silence was not her only option. The manager implemented changes, training staff, posting clear policies, learning the hard way that protecting people mattered more than protecting profits. Apologies came late and halting, consequences biting deeper than any lecture ever had. Whether he truly changed was a question only time could answer, but the door to that possibility had been forced open by a moment of accountability he could not escape. For the SEAL, the incident was one more chapter in a life defined by stepping into danger when others hesitated, though he never sought recognition for it. He returned to his unit, carrying with him the quiet satisfaction that sometimes saving the day did not require a battlefield, only the willingness to stand up when it mattered most. If this story stirred something in you, if it reminded you of the power of showing up for one another, take a moment near the end of this video to engage, to let us know you felt it too. And just before we wrap up, please comment below with a single word that captures what this story meant to you, because your voice is part of what keeps these moments alive. In a small diner on an ordinary day, a young woman learned that she was not invisible, a roomful of strangers learned the cost of silence, and one man reminded everyone that real heroism often arrives quietly, asking nothing in return. Stories like this linger not because of the shock, but because of the hope they leave behind, the reminder that even in places where fear once ruled, courage can still walk in and change everything.